Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. Hope you're having a great day. This is a watercolour painting I painted in Artrage 6. I was trying out the delicate on dry brush and I wanted to see if I could produce a delicate watercolour. So here it is, let's get into it. So I said this is going to be a tryout using the delicate on dry watercolour brush, but I'm also using the soft pencil, I think it's called soft tip, to sketch out the scene first. When I do watercolours, unlike with the oils, I do like to get a sketch on the paper before I start. And that sketch becomes part of the finished piece. I don't use an eraser or hide the layer with the sketch on after it because it's how I work with real watercolour. The sketch is essentially part of that real painting or the finished painting. And I also don't want to be moving things around and scaling things up because I'm going to be creating lots of layers for this, so it's not going to be easy, and I don't want to particularly flatten the layers. I want to I want them to sort of stay in place, as it were. Just looking at those eyes on that cow, and I've got them a little bit high, but never mind. So you can see I'm sort of measuring out as I'm going. Drawing in that little pig in the front there. So I measure out as I go and try and get everything. I'm sort of measuring things by looking at where the top of the head of the small cow, the calf, meets the eyes of the cow on the left, and so on and so forth. I'm just sort of doing lots of visual measuring to try and get this scene sketched out as accurately as I can. It is a crop photo, of course. There was much more in the scene, but I just wanted to draw just a couple of 3 cows. I didn't want to have to do too many, so that's why I've cropped it, really. And the reason I like this photo, I'd take this herd of cows were being taken from a field, and I guess they was going to milk in, and they blocked the road while I was out for a walk with my camera. So I was really lucky. I was just at the right time, and I had to wait while all these cows passed. I got quite a few photos, but I really like this one because of the shadows. I just love the way the lights are making all of these shapes on the cows. So hopefully I'm going to capture that. So now, right, we're right into the delicate on dry brush now. And I don't change any of the settings until much later on, and I'm going to build this up with lots of layers of colour gradually. I just sort of getting very delicate washes on first of all, leaving a few highlights where I think there should be some whites, and just getting a colour over the whole of the paper, and that is on its own layer. So we've got the drawing on the bottom layer. I create a second layer, get the wash on, and then I start painting shadows. So this, I'm guessing now I've done the highlights. I'm now into mid-tones and putting the mid-tones in, because with watercolour you start with the lightest and work your way through to the darkest colour. So that's how I'm going to treat this digital painting. I'm doing it exactly like a watercolour because I want to get a watercolour painting or result at the end of it. You see I'm adjusting the colours as I'm going, so they're not all the exactly the same flat colour this time. Initially on the first wash I just got a sort of a generic wash over the whole of the area, although I mean obviously I adjusted it for the sky and the trees. But the cows was all one colour. But this time I'm sort of varying it up a lot more. And I'm really liking this delicate on dry brush. I thought I'm just going to try a watercolour brush. And it was the first one of the default brushes. It right at the top of the stack. I made a few marks with it. I thought, oh yeah, this could work quite well. So I'm doing what would be called, if I was doing this with watercolours, it would be glazing techniques. You may have noticed then, if you was quick, on the layer stacks, I changed all the layer modes to watercolour just to make them a little bit darker and make them pop just a little bit. So all of the layer stacks are set to watercolour now, but a little bit later on I do change the last 2 layers, I think, mode to multiply. But here you go, you can see I'm now adding much more stronger colour into the scene. So I'm still really in mid-tones, but instead of just thinking about shadows, I'm thinking about colour as well now, and getting some colour in there and just darkening up those tones. I could have possibly have done this in less layers if I'd have upped the pressure on the brush and knocked the thinners down a little bit, and I would have got a darker colour. But I didn't think to do that until a little bit later on. I started to mess around with the settings on the brush on the later layers. But originally, or the first, how many we got there? 4 layers. These are all exactly as it ships with Artrage. I've not changed anything. Notice I keep bringing in the path with the legs, so the legs don't sort of stand out too much. They just blur into the shadow of the background. I really like that. I just adjust the colour a little bit. So now we're going to create another layer, layer 5. This is, I think, the multiply layer at this point, and I'm now going into the darks. So I'm looking closely at the reference image. I actually had although I put the reference image on the screen for you there using the Artrage reference tool, I used I used the same image, but on a different screen. I got a large screen where I could see a lot more detail without having to keep zooming in on the reference. Just made it a lot easier for me. So I'm going in with the darker tones. And still not really thinking about detail, just sort of darker shadows really. Just changing the colours here and there to get some nice warm oranges and browns. And then in the dark shadows, changing it to cool blues. And again, just sort of merging those legs in with that background. I love the way this brush, when you paint with it, as you touch another colour, it just blends with it. It emerges very much like sort of 2 watercolour washes running together. Getting a little bit of detail in now, just starting to think about the eyes and the noses. Notice I sort of put the nostrils in, and then I don't know if you call it a nose, would you, on a cow? Does a cow have a nose, or is it a snout, or what? I don't know. But anyway, the nostrils, I sort of painted them in, and then just sort of softened the edges by letting another colour run into it. I'm on layer 6 now, so going even darker. And this is where I've got a multiply layer, and what I do, I put some dark colour on, and then you'll see I adjust the colour to, so I'm putting dark colour on here, watch, and then I will adjust the colour to light, almost white, and then that acts like just a wash of water to soften off the edge of those colours, sort of blend it into the, there we go, so doing it again there. And it just allows me to add a little bit of shape to objects by just washing away the colour. So I'm getting really dark now. It's getting close to the end. I'm just sort of popping in a bit more stronger colour just to make the make that little calf in the front pop out a little bit. So it's really looking like we're getting some nice strong daylight on these cows now. Just building up that those shadows, doing that washing away technique where I put the colour on and then blend it away very carefully with some nice water. I get it signed, so obviously very happy with that. And then notice I've got some, very quickly, I've got some darks on the hooves of the cows, and then some, I just put in a few highlights. And there we go, using the Delicate on Dry watercolour brush in Artrage. Really enjoyed doing this one. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, big thumbs up as always, much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell, because I have lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. And don't forget, check out my new painting in traditional materials, i.e. oil paints and watercolour and stuff, on my other channel. So thanks for staying with me right till the end. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.